this morning is kind of a parallel. Some aspects of the Word of God as we look at the body. So the topic, as you see on the slide, the flip side of a two-edged sword, when normal becomes abnormal. Text for meditation. For the Word of God is quick and powerful and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing of the soul and the spirit and of the joints and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart. That's Hebrews 4 and verse 12. And the other one from Psalm 107 verse 20. He sent his word and healed them and delivered them from their destructions. And as you can figure, I am looking at both aspects of the Word of God, where it is able to cut and remove, but at the same time, it heals. And being a two-edged sword, nothing escapes. We have a situation with our immune system in that it can function like a two-edged sword, and it has problems quite similar to the Word of God. It's not allowed to function as it ought to function, then we end up with problems. All right, so quickly, objectives. I'm going to just quickly define what's inflammation and chronic inflammation, some of the effects of chronic inflammation, understanding of the underlying causes of chronic inflammation, to treat and prevent, and some take-home messages. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, we have been seeing patients with these complaints that don't really fit any particular syndrome in the textbook. And what we are finding is that they picture of chronic inflammation going on inside the body. All right, so inflammation is really an immune response. It's a natural defense mechanism that is responsible for removing germs from the body and toxins. So virus and bacteria, fungi, and are removed by the immune system. It's also responsible for removing dead and dysfunctional tissues and the stuff that comes from the breakdown of these tissues. And it is also responsible for the repair following the damage. The immune system is mainly white blood cells and their products, but the damaged tissues and other components in the body do take part in the immune response. Inflammation is really intended to be short-lived. So something happens and you have this burst of inflammation that takes care of the problem, and once the problem is solved, things just go right back to normal. And a typical example is that I get stuck by a thorn. Well, that should be by a thorn. I'll get pain and itching and swelling and redness, and the area gets warm, and perhaps there is some pus formation and some area of the body that is affected. If we remove the thorn, the immune system will get rid of any germs that might have entered the skin, cleans up the damaged parts of the skin, promotes healing, the area returns to normal, except for a possible scar. This is a quick animation, it's about a minute, that a visual picture of the inflammatory response that goes on in the body following an. All right, so he's riding his bike, his scooter, and falls, broken skin, and there you see those green dots represent bacteria that has entered the skin. The area is swelling and getting red. There's increased blood flow to the area, and these little bright areas you see are danger signals telling the body that something is wrong in this area. White blood cells leave the blood vessels, enter the skin, begin to destroy the germs that entered, and at the same time promoting healing, and goes back to normal with a little bit of scar. And that takes about 7 days or so. So, as I said, it's intended to be short-lived, just to deal with the problem. If my problem is localized, like the thorn or the little injury that the young man had, then they are usually limited to that area. But if I have a bigger problem, like I catch a cold, I may begin to get symptoms and dysfunction in larger systems of my body. So you catch a cold, you begin to have problems. The germ damages the lining of your nostrils, sinuses, throats, and possible lungs. The inflammation now affects a lot more, and sneezing and coughing and fever and fatigue and loss of appetite are some of the effects that are felt throughout the body. So it's not just the ear that is damaged, but the entire body actually suffers at this point. But once the germ is removed and the damaged tissues are dealt with, things go back to normal. These are cases where the inflammation is meant to deal with something that is really a threat. But there are some persons who have allergies, and their body produces an inflammatory response to something that is not dangerous. Because, you know, how dangerous is a little bit of pollen or a little bit of dust? It's not that dangerous, but the immune system launches a response that can cause swelling of the breathing problems. So it's the same thing that happens in asthma, where the airways respond in an exaggerated way. So if when the inflammation begins to pass the order of weeks, well, really days, going into weeks and months and even years, then we have a situation now that we call chronic inflammation. This can be due to the body's inability to remove whatever was causing inflammation in the first place, or that the body itself can't necessarily properly deal with the problem. So if the thorn remain embedded in my skin, then the inflammation could go on for a long time, because the thing that caused it is still present. But if my immune system is not functioning, then all of that repair and housekeeping mechanism is all messed up, and I can have chronic inflammation. And chronic inflammation is essentially a fire that just continues to burn and does not go out. Quickly now, chronic inflammation, whether it's by direct activation of the immune system or a situation where the brain perceives danger and creates a danger response, which is accompanied by inflammation, leads to systemic inflammation throughout the entire body, which in itself can lead to problems such as sleep disruption, mood problems, premature aging of the body and the brain, which can lead to early dementia, digestive problems, irritable bowel and inflammatory bowel, damage to blood vessels, and disruption of the normal heart and blood vessel function, causing high blood pressure and heart disease. Disruption of normal sugar management, which can lead to obesity and diabetes. And tissue changes. Inflammation can cause changes in our tissues that will eventually lead to the formation of cancer and a host of other problems which we will not be able to cover today. So some of the causes and solutions. So as I mentioned, the cause, the solution basically encapsulated in that. So poor nutrition is a cause of chronic inflammation. When we eat a lot of sugars and refined carbohydrates, processed food, low fiber diet, and we ingest things that naturally cause inflammation, like animal milk, and we don't eat a whole plant-based diet that would deal with the free radicals that can damage the tissues and lead to inflammation. Ingestion of a lot of trans fat. So when we do a lot of frying with vegetable oil, we create an environment inside our bodies that creates inflammation. Lack of exercise. It leads to fat accumulation. Plus, lack of exercise leads to abnormal functioning of the body, including the immune. Exercise is an immune booster by itself. Dehydration, something seemingly benign, but when we are dehydrated, our tissues begin to dysfunction, and we have problems with eliminating waste. Our skin and other linings of the body become fragile, and this can lead to an ongoing damage, which the body will try and heal, but because the damage is, the inflammatory response is ongoing, and this leads to chronic inflammation. If we have problems, with our sunlight exposure, we have insufficient exposure to the healing rays, which leads to low vitamin D production, and vitamin D is an immune regulator. But on the flip side, overexposure to sunlight can lead to cell damage, including DNA damage. That's damage to the genetic material, which could lead to formation of cancer. And if we're in a dirty environment where there's a lot of mold, it can lead to chronic inflammation. Exposing ourselves to chemicals, smoking, alcohol, can lead to problems of chronic inflammation. And this comes under temperance. So when we ingest caffeine and caffeine in beverages and in chocolate, it leads to anxiety and sleep disruption. And sleep disruption can lead to a chronic inflammatory state in our body. Overeating, lack of temperance again. It has been known for many years that when we eat excessively, when our caloric intake is excessive, it leads to many degenerative problems. Concerning air, if there's insufficient air intake and we're not getting enough oxygen, and the carbon dioxide that our body produces as a waste product is not properly eliminated, or we are inhaling airborne toxins, polluted environment, these things can cause chronic inflammation. So fresh air is an immune booster and aids in the overall functioning of the body's machinery. And the last two I want to deal with is the matter of rest and or trust in God. Inadequate rest leads to poor performance of the body's repair mechanism, which leads to inflammation, which can lead to further disruption. On the slide, insomnia is one of the effects of chronic inflammation. So you end up in a vicious cycle where you're not getting enough rest, you get the chronic inflammation, which further disrupts your sleep and worsens the inflammation, and it just goes on until the cycle is broken. And the final one, anxiety. When we get anxious, the danger response mechanism in our brain is turned on, and this leads to chronic inflammation throughout the body. Our take-home messages. The immune system is powerful, able to eliminate any danger to the body, but at the same time, it can heal. So it removes, it destroys, but it heals. When its actions are disrupted or disturbed, it spells trouble for the entire body. In the immune system is important. Parallel. The word of God cuts deep and misses nothing, yet it cuts and heals at the same time. If we do not allow the word of God to do its work, the net results can disrupt for us, where we can have physical problems from our disturbed conscience, sleep because our conscience are disturbed. And from a spiritual point of view, our conscience become hardened and we suffer the effects of kicking against the pricks. Doing the right things that your immune system and the word of God, do the right thing rather, that your immune system and the word of God can do its proper work of cutting, moving, and repairing and restoring us back to normal. That's the end of the presentation. I hope it wasn't too rushed and condensed.
No, it wasn't. And I want to thank you so much, Dr. Newman, for this presentation. I actually took some notes. There are some things that I learned that I didn't know before.
Okay. The slide, I can always share the slides with everyone.
That would be awesome. That would be great. Okay. So, Brother Marvin or Sister Sylvester, rather, if you're able to share it with either one of them, they'll be able to get it to everybody else.
All right.
Thank you so much, Dr. Newman. And I hope others were blessed. Yes, Spirit.
Amen.
Awesome, awesome. Very good, very good. So let us take heed, brothers and sisters, and learn to take care of our bodies so that the Spirit can dwell within us and continue to guide us into gaining and creating the character of Jesus Christ in us. The next on our agenda, we have Brother Campbell, but he's having internet issues. So Pastor McFarlane will play a selection for us for a musical presentation this morning.